Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Adam Weller, and I am the Assistant Commissioner with the Office of Labor Standards. Today, we will discuss labor protections for domestic workers. We will cover who is a domestic worker, what rights they have, responsibilities for household employers, and we will highlight available online resources for both domestic workers and employers. But first, I'd like to introduce you to our office. The Office of Labor Standards, or OLS, is dedicated to promoting and enforcing Chicago's labor laws. We seek to engage communities and protect workers through a strong investigation and enforcement regime. We process complaints, conduct investigations, mediate disputes, direct settlement proceedings, issue violations, and if necessary, we will seek licensure discipline against employers. We provide outreach and education to employers and workers alike. In 2024, we received over 700 labor standards complaints. Of those 700 plus, we were able to close or successfully resolve over 450 of them, resulting in over $690,000 of money put back into the pockets of Chicago workers. The labor laws that we enforce are anti-retaliation, which prevents an employer from discriminating or taking any adverse action against an individual in retaliation for exercising any right under Chicago's worker protection ordinances. Domestic worker contracts, which we will discuss in detail today. The Fair Work Week Ordinance, which is a predictive scheduling law for specific industries. The minimum wage, paid leave and paid sick and safe leave, and wage theft. So, who is a domestic worker? Domestic worker means a person whose primary duties include housekeeping, house cleaning, home management, nanny services, including child care and child monitoring, caregiving, personal care, or home health services for elderly persons or persons with illnesses, injuries, or disabilities who require assistance in caring for themselves, laundering, cooking, companion services, chauffeuring, and other household services to members of households or their guests in or about a private home or residence or any other location where the domestic work is performed. These rights below are afforded to domestic workers regardless of immigration status, race, gender identity, or sexual orientation. Domestic workers have a right to make the minimum wage. As of July 1st, 2024, all domestic workers must earn a minimum of $16.20 per hour. That rate will increase on July 1st, 2025 to $16.60 per hour. If a domestic worker works at least 80 hours over a 120-day period for a single employer, then they are entitled to earn and use paid leave and paid sick leave from that employer. Domestic workers have the right to 1 day off in 7 days. So if you work at least 20 hours a week for the same employer, your boss cannot make you work 7 days in a row. You have the right to an unpaid day off. You can work 7 days a week if you choose. Domestic workers have the right to overtime pay. So if you work more than 40 hours in a calendar week, you should be earning time and a half pay. However, there is an overtime exemption for certain live-in domestic workers. You have the right to a meal break. So for every 7.5 hours worked, you should be permitted a 20-minute meal break, and that is a state of Illinois law. Domestic workers have the right to be free from sexual harassment and discrimination, and they have a right to a written contract. Per Municipal Code of Chicago 6-120020, all employers of domestic workers shall provide a written contract in the domestic workers' preferred language, setting forth the agreed upon wage and work schedule. If you are a household employer and you directly hire a domestic worker, you have legal requirements. We spoke about the written contract on the previous page, but I'd like to expand on that. Expectations and terms should be clear and reviewed annually, or when there is a change to the scope of work. Those contracts should outline expectations for both the worker and the employer. Contracts are required regardless of employment status. So if your domestic worker is a direct employee or an independent contractor, those contracts are required for both. You have an obligation to pay the minimum wage to your domestic worker, which is currently $16.20 per hour. Again, increasing on July 1st, 2025 to $16.60 per hour. And if your domestic worker works for you for at least 80 hours within any 120-day period, you must provide 1 hour of paid leave and 1 hour of paid sick leave for every 35 hours that they work. There's also a record-keeping requirement under the Chicago Minimum Wage Ordinance. Under that ordinance, it requires that employers maintain records, including the covered employee's full name and address, the hours worked, the pay rate, wage agreement, any records necessary to demonstrate compliance with the Chicago Minimum Wage Ordinance, and those records must be maintained for 5 years. Now we'll discuss a couple of labor laws where we typically see non-compliance with domestic workers. This is the minimum wage current rate table, which shows what the minimum wage is for specific workers, but it includes all domestic workers must receive at least the $16.20 minimum wage. The minimum wage increases every July 1st, as a reminder. We also see cases of wage theft. Wage theft is the failure to pay workers the full wages to which they are legally entitled. Wage theft can take many forms, including but not limited to what we discussed previously for minimum wage violations, which is paying workers less than the legal minimum wage. Overtime violations, so failing to pay those employees time and a half for hours worked in excess of 40 hours per week. It includes any off-the-clock violations, such as asking your employees to work off the clock before or after their shifts without paying them. Meal break violations, like we discussed, taking illegal deductions from wages, and the untimely payment of wages. So as a reminder, employers must pay workers within 7 days if they are paid weekly, within 13 days if they are paid biweekly, or in accordance with any wage agreement between the employer and the worker. If you're a domestic worker and you feel that any of your rights have been violated, you may file a complaint with our office. Those complaints can be submitted by form, through the mail, through our email, by calling 311, or by using the SHI 311 app. Once we receive the complaint, we will contact the complainant to gather additional information. If we determine that a violation may exist, we will conduct an investigation. During that investigation, we will subpoena necessary records from the employer. If violations are discovered, we will attempt to reach a settlement agreement, or we can issue violations which will be heard at the Department of Administrative Hearing, at the Mayor's License Discipline Commission, or at Circuit Court. A reminder for anybody seeking assistance from our office, per the Welcoming City Ordinance, immigration status of a worker does not affect the applicability of existing labor rights. Also, our investigations are confidential. The name of a complainant is only shared with written authorization, so individuals can file anonymous complaints or they can advocate on behalf of others. I'd like to highlight some online resources for domestic workers and employers. The chi.gov/care website provides valuable information for domestic workers, for employment agencies, and household employers. There are frequently asked questions, legal requirements, partner agency contact information, links to model contracts, and more. The contents of this website was also recently updated in May of 2025. Or you can visit the Office of Labor Standards website. This website is a valuable resource tool for employees and employers alike. Each ordinance under our jurisdiction has its own section, which contains additional information on the ordinance, any applicable rules pertaining to the ordinance, and frequently asked question documents. The information on our website is available in 12 different languages that are spoken in the city of Chicago. That web address is chicago.gov/labor standards. We have developed educational resources for every labor law. Here's an example of our educational fact sheet for domestic worker contracts. These are downloadable. You can print these, you can post them, you can keep them. However they assist you, they are available on our website. We also have FAQ documents available for minimum wage, fair work week, and for paid leave and paid sick leave. For additional resources, we have our BACP YouTube page, youtube.com/ChicagoBACP, which contains recordings of over 60 webinars that OLS has hosted throughout the years. We record monthly webinars like today's, and we post them to this page. Many webinars are available in Spanish along with their English version. Our contact information, we are located at 2350 West Ogden Avenue on the second floor, or we can be reached by phone at 312-744-2211, or by email at bacplaborstandards@cityofchicago.org. If you have a specific question which pertains to your situation, please contact us, whether that's by phone, email, or by dropping in. We'd love to hear from you. With that, that is the end of this presentation, and I want to say thank you, and we look forward to hearing from you.